Hare Krishna, everybody. Seems like it's been a year since I've been sitting here on Sundays. COVID and all. So we're going to sing a little song. Most of you know the song, but some of you may not know the song. So I'm going to go over the words. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. All glories to Radha and Madhava. Madhava is the name for Krishna, means the husband of the goddess of fortune. Kunja Bihari, who likes to play and sport in the gardens and groves of Vrindavan. Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari. Gopi Janas, the gopis, the milkmaids of Vrindavan. Vallabha, he's much beloved. They all love him. Giri Varadhari, perfect for this temple. Giri Vara means the best of hills, Govardhan. Dhari, he who lifts it up. He's the lifter of Govardhan. This whole temple is named after the lifter of Govardhan, New Govardhan. Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashoda is his mother, of course. Nandana, he's the delight of his mother. All his pastimes and his loving mellows and exchanges, very intimate. Brajajana Ranjana, he delights all the residents of Vrindavan. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna means, Tira means the bank of the Yamuna River. Idyllic land in Vrindavan, the Yamuna is flowing through, pristine. Yamuna Tira Vanachari, he enjoys pastimes in the forest on the bank of that Yamuna. So when I sing, if you can remember that, visualize it, and see if you can go into ecstasy. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari. Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Gauranathai ki jai, Shri Radha Hari ki jai, all these some of the devotees ki jai. So tonight's little talk, discourse, has a title. I gave it the title of Sadhya and Sadhana. Finding out the goal of life and the method to achieve it. It's a very important concept. I'm missing a table with the time on it. Clock. Thank you, brother. Yeah, you can put it here. Thanks a lot. So, this concept, sadhya and sadhana, comes up in a very important part of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Some of you may have heard of this Chaitanya Charitamrita. Chaitanya Charitamrita means the nectarian pastimes and activities and qualities of Lord Chaitanya. That's the name of the title of the book, written by Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami, who wasn't a contemporary of Lord Chaitanya, but right after him, and he had some association with the 6 Goswamis. Kaviraj means he's a great poet. And he was asked to write this book to inform the devotees about the latter pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya is an amazing figure. He's Krishna himself, appearing in the mood of his own devotee, of the mood of his most exalted devotee, Srimati Radharani. And it's understood that he appeared for 2 reasons, one internal, one external. Before I expound, I'm going to start from my obeisance to Srila Prabhupada. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance to him and all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So Lord Chaitanya appeared for his own reasons, Krishna appeared as Lord Chaitanya for his own reasons, to relish his own personality and beauty from Radharani's point of view. Krishna was finding that Srimati Radharani was experiencing even more ecstasy than he was in the spiritual world by serving him with perfect love. And so he wanted to experience the glory of that love, but he couldn't do it from his own position as Krishna. He wanted to experience and taste his own beauty and qualities through the lens of her unparalleled loving devotion. And he wanted to experience the unparalleled pleasure and ananda she was experiencing from loving him and being loved by him. So that's the internal reason. The external reason was for us, because he wanted to propagate the Sankirtan movement, the Dharma of the age, whereby we, poor residents of Kali Yuga, who really can't practice yoga. Is anyone ready to go to Himalayas and sit alone in the forest? No, I didn't think so. And so even Arjuna rejected the process, and it turns out that the most efficacious and practical process for achieving going back home, back to Godhead, and solving all the problems of life is what we've just been doing. Congregational chanting of the holy name of Krishna, especially this Hare Krishna mantra. And Lord Chaitanya, he preached himself. He went to South India and propagated his holy name. And he taught his great disciples like Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, and who then taught others. And I wanted to point out this book, this beautiful book called Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Teachings of Lord Chaitanya was one of the first books that Srila Prabhupada wrote after he came to America. He first wrote the abridged Bhagavad Gita. He actually didn't write the abridged Bhagavad Gita, but it had to come out in abridged form because there was no other way to print it at the time. But he also he gleaned the essence of the teachings of Lord Chaitanya from the Chaitanya Charitamrita and put it into this very nice book. And so I'm going to be speaking a little bit from this book and giving you some of the taste of this one. This is the first book that I read through that really kind of turned me around and made me want to become a devotee of Krishna. A very wonderful book. So back to Sadhya and Sadhana. The word Sadhya, as I mentioned, means the goal of life. And Sadhana means the practice or the means of attaining it. Now Sadhya can actually mean any goal that you want to achieve. In fact, this principle is universal in human society, even in subhuman society. We're kind of, just by being within this world, we have certain needs and certain goals that we have to achieve. Even the animals, they have to eat. So it's programmed in that there's a food provided for them in the way that they can attain it. Whether they're birds or dogs or lions, whatever it may be, to meet the basic needs of the body. So in a very crude way, there's also a sadhya and sadhana for every condition. But when it comes to spiritual matters, I'd like to, as I promised, refer to Sanatana Goswami. Sanatana Goswami was one of the main disciples of Lord Chaitanya. He taught him for 2 months straight. Rupa Goswami was his younger brother. He taught him for 10 days. So that teaching to Sanatana Goswami is the longest section in the Chaitanya Charitamrita of Lord Chaitanya's direct teachings. Now, those who are familiar with the movement, you may know Srila Prabhupada's Pranam mantra, which he taught us. Namaham Vishnu Padaya Krishna Bastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinhamane. I offer my obeisances unto A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who is very dear to Lord Krishna, having taken shelter of his lotus feet in this world. And Namaste Saraswati Deve Gora Vani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine. So at the time, Prabhupada was in 26 Second Avenue. And at least externally, he didn't reveal that he knew that he was going to, expand this movement all over the world, although he had founded the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. But all he had was this one little storefront, and the devotees wanted the Pranam mantra for him. So he wrote this, and it says, Namaste Saraswati Devi, I offer my obeisances unto you, the servant and disciple of Saraswati Goswami, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami. Gauravani Pracharine, and this is why I bring this up, who are giving the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Gauravani literally means the words of Lord Chaitanya. You're spreading those in the Western world, and thus delivering the Western world from the clutches of impersonalism and voidism, which expands into all kinds of philosophies that just bewilder us. So Srila Prabhupada came, and his whole life was living and teaching the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. So when Sanatana Goswami, now just a little background, Sanatana Goswami and his brother were the right and left hand of the king of Bengal at the time, Nawab Hussain Shah. They were so competent. They both knew several languages. They were very, very learned. They came in Saraswat Brahmin families. And so they were employed by the Muslim king to run the kingdom. And so he could go out and make war and everything like that. So he relied on them. They were devotees. Now, they were coerced into doing this. This is a very important point, is that they always say, I'm going to persecute the Brahmins and the Vaishnavas unless you come and work for me. So they did that, and in so doing, they became somewhat outcast because they're working with the Muslim king like that. But there were still great devotees, inside. So Lord Chaitanya specifically came to the town where they were, so that he could meet them. He knew about them. And they surrendered to him, and they spoke this very famous verse. Some of you may know who have some experience with this God. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gora Tujay Namaha. So they met him and they offered this prayer. I offer my obeisances unto the most munificent avatar of Krishna, most generous. Why? Because you're freely giving the most valuable jewel, Krishna Prema. Freely. Anyone can chant Hare Krishna and attain perfection in that regard. Krishna Prema Daya. Krishnaya Krishna, you are Krishna himself in the form of Krishna Chaitanya. Taking the name Krishna Chaitanya. Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gora Trijay Namaha, with this golden glow, with this golden complexion. I offer my obeisances. So Lord Chaitanya ordered them, okay, you give up this job and you go to Vrindavan. Disregard everything else, and I'll meet you and will teach you, and you'll be able to help me in my movement. So they did that. With great difficulty, especially Sanatana Goswami. He was arrested. The Nawab was so reliant on him, he said, I'm not going to let you quit. So he arrested him. But Rupa Goswami, they had amassed a whole fortune, a whole boatload of gold, solid gold. You can imagine how much that's worth today, which he divided carefully. He gave 50% to the Brahmins and Vaishnavas, 25% to his family, and 25% he kept for emergencies. So that was put in the care of an honest grocer. Can you imagine? With a society where you can put, $10 million in the hands of an honest grocer. How honest they were. And so Sanatana was able to use that money to bribe the jailer to let him out of jail, and so he made his way to Lord Chaitanya. So when he met Lord Chaitanya, not in Vrindavan, but in Benares. Lord Chaitanya was staying there at the time. It's a long story I won't get into. But when he finally came down and he surrendered, he surrendered and spoke these famous words. Ke ami kene amai jare tapatrai. Iha nahi jani kemane hita hoy. Sorry about my Bengali. Very good. This is the question. This is the question really that every aspiring bhakta, everyone aspiring Krishna conscious person should ask of someone who can give them the proper answer. In this case, Lord Chaitanya is the greatest source. Who am I? Why do the threefold miseries always give me trouble? If I do not know this, how can I be benefited? So that who am I question is very important. Obviously, it's essential. Because if I'm going to achieve the goal of life, I have to know who I actually am. And this is a great confusion, because in our present state, we think we're this physical body. We think that I'm male, female, I have such an age, I was born here, this is my land, this is my family, I and my, all centered on this body. But this is Lord Chaitanya's first teaching in the Bhagavad Gita, is that you're not the body. You've had many bodies before, and you'll have future bodies. And even in this one lifetime, we have so many bodies, isn't it? I'm sitting here now, 73 years old. I can remember when I was 10, even 5, 20, 30, 40, 50. Each of those bodies was different. Getting older, right? So the body's changing, the mind is changing. Otherwise, why do we get an education? So who am I in all of this? I'm going through all these different bodies, like taking a different jacket and coat off and putting on another one, as Krishna gives us analogy in the Gita. So this is a very nice, Krishna gives us the beginning of his teaching, Dehi nosmin yata dehi. Just as the soul passes through childhood and adolescence and youthhood and middle age, old age, similarly the soul gets another body at death. So immediately it should wake you up and say, yeah, I'm not the body. Then again, who am I then? What am I? Who am I? And so a lot of the Gita explains that. You are a spirit soul. You're part and parcel of the Supreme Soul, Krishna. Krishna says, Mamai Vangsha Jiva Loka Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. All the living beings, not just in human bodies, but in all the different species, the plants, the insects, the birds, the beasts, everything. They're all, I'm the father. Aham bija pradakpida. I am the father of all. And they're going and wandering up and down different species, up and down the different planets, according to their acts, according to their karma or activities, and the mentality that would create. So the wonderful thing about this is that if we have the knowledge of how to think and act in this lifetime, then we can achieve the best future body of all, which is a spiritual body, which doesn't get old, which doesn't die, which is back to Godhead, our original spiritual body. So this is the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. So he's asking here, and then his next question has to do with Sadhya and Sadhana. He says, Sadhya Sadhana tattva puchite na jani. Actually, I don't know how to inquire about the goal of life and the process for obtaining it. Being merciful upon me, please explain all these truths. And then Lord Chaitanya proceeds to teach him. And that is the longest section in this book and the longest section of teachings in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. It very thoroughly goes through these three technical words I'll explain, but I'll explain them. Sambandha, Abhideya, Prayojana. Sambandha is the first aspect. Who am I? What is this world? Where did it all come from? Assuming there's a source, is it impersonal or personal? What are the relationships between these things? If we don't know this, it's just like if you have a disease, what's the first step? Diagnosis. The doctor has to find what is wrong. Then he can figure out how to cure it. So if we don't even understand who we are, how we got here, what the source of our difficulties are, and how we can mitigate them, then we're going to just act on the basis of inferior or imperfect knowledge, so-called knowledge, and we'll remain bound up within this birth and death syndrome, which we have been going on for who knows how many births. Hundreds, thousands, even millions of years. So we have a great opportunity now. Krishna has come himself and spoken the Bhagavad Gita 5,000 years ago. He's come again just 500, or well, it's more like 550 years ago now. As Lord Chaitanya spoke so many things recorded. It's coming down through the writings of the Goswamis, and Srila Prabhupada, he distilled the essence of it, and it's there in his books. And by his incredible effort and surrender, he created this society all over the world. This little corner, Cass and Grand, is not in the material world. When you walk in here, and there's the beautiful deity of Radha Giridhari just pouring out their compassion and mercy and beauty for you, attracting, and the atmosphere of the temple it evokes the consciousness of Krishna. The pictures, the devotees, the sounds, the prasadam, everything. It's a little corner of the spiritual world. Now, of course, we have to work to maintain the sanctity of it, but that's part of our sadhana as devotees. But how did this embassy of the spiritual world come here? A lot of effort of Srila Prabhupada and his sincere devotees. Some of you know the history of how this whole temple was decorated so nicely. Back in, was it 78, 79, I think? Gunagrai Maharaj was here. He was married at the time, actually, Gunagrai Das. And his wife, you remember her name? I forget. But she was an expert designer in artist type. And she conceived all this. She went to India. These shapes and these things, they're classic. And she brought it back. She had a whole crew. And they brought down some artists and sculptors from L.A. There was something called the Fate Museum. It's there now with all kinds of sculptures depicting Krishna conscious themes, dioramas. And for a year, they worked on this temple to evoke, it's unique in ISKCON, actually, And so all of this being maintained, and the deity department, and the cooking department, and the devotees preaching, and all of this is here for us, to give us a forum where we can hear, we can chant Hare Krishna, take prasadam, learn more about Krishna, and become attracted to Krishna and to practice Krishna consciousness. Because the sky's the limit. You read the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Most of the pastimes are all there. Here you get the teachings and a little, the pastime. But the levels of bhakti and ananda and bliss that were experienced by Lord Chaitanya, those who he converted, some were Mayavadis, died in the wool and personalists, like famously Prakashananda Saraswati, thousands of disciples, impersonalists. There's no personal God. The ultimate reality is just white light. I mean, any bhakta who's just beginning the chant would say, really? That's not very attractive. But what's attractive is, no more birth, no more death. I'll be free, no more pain. That's a big attraction. But for a devotee, someone who's experienced just a little bit of the pleasure of Krishna consciousness, that comes as a byproduct. That's not the goal. And if that's all you have, you can't stay in that platform. Because we are by nature, this is another part of understanding who we are. By nature, we're persons. We're not just particles of consciousness. We're persons with senses, with desires and things. All of our original personality is covered over by this gross and subtle matter, the mind and the body. So, Sadhya Sadhana. Sanatana Goswami has taken the role of a kind of a disciple. He's a real disciple. He knows all this already, which is what Lord Chaitanya tells him. He said, you're already liberated, but thank you for asking. Then I can speak on it. And he systematically describes this Sambandha Abhideya Prayojana, who we are, what this world is. He even talks about creation, different avatars. And the key element here, which is another classic verse here, comes up, and I'm just going to share this with you. Who are we? This is the answer to that. This verse is often quoted by Srila Prabhupada. Jivera swarupoi Krishnera nityadas. Krishnera tatasta shakti beda beda prakash. I'm going to explain it. I'll read Prabhupada's translation. It is the living entity's consonantal position to be an eternal servant of Krishna, because he, the living entity, is the marginal energy of Krishna, and a manifestation simultaneously one with and different from the Lord, like a molecular particle of sunshine or fire. So there's a lot in there to just unpack. But understanding this is Krishna's words in the form of Lord Chaitanya. So we are jivas. Jiva means living entities in the material world. You see? So jiva is swarup. this very important concept of a sarup. Sarup means your actual form, not this ever-changing material form and subtle body, subtle mind. That's not our real form. This is just part of Krishna's energies. The earth, the water, the fire, air, ether. Many of you are familiar with Bhagavad Gita. It's just a big complicated machine. And amazingly complicated. And it has the subtle part is the mind also, but that's also material. But our sarup, our actual form, spiritual form, is to be a servant of Krishna. Now what does that mean? Well, read Krishna book. You read Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, in Dwarka. And there's so many devotees with different relationships with Krishna. They fall into basic categories. Of course, everyone knows Madhya Yashoda, Nanda Maharaj. You know, there it's a creation. It's a relationship of deep love, and Krishna is so merciful. He hides his divinity so that they can love him as a little child. Some of the most attractive pastimes of Krishna. You know, Rupa Goswami has written this book, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Prabhupada gave us his nectar of devotion, and the Sanskrit is such wonderful, expressions. I'll just share one verse with you about the classic position of Krishna crawling toward Madhya Yashoda with a little butter in his hand. Just listen to the sound. Kwanata kanika kinkani kalapam smitamukamudra nasaka gramuktam. Kadadita navanita pindamangre tanayamavesha nananda patni. Now that Nanda Patni itself is such a wonderful phrase. Nanda Patni means the wife of Nanda Maharaj. Nananda means to delight. So Madhya Yashoda is being delighted by this her little son. What is he doing? Kwanata kanika kinkani kalapa. So Kwanata is nicely tinkling sound of its kanika, that's golden bells that are strung around his waist and maybe a few on his ankles. So he's crawling toward her. Kwanata kanika kinkani kalapam smita mukam, with a smiling face. Every mother knows that if the child is smiling at him, this is like ecstasy, right? Sometimes they're crying, sometimes they're smiling, Smita mukam ujjvala nasikagam, and he has a beautiful effulgent pearl affixed to his the tip of his nose. He's got is the bells and the pearl. That's all he's wearing. Smita mukam ujjvala nasikagam muktam. He's a little baby, maybe 6 months or a year old or something. Nasika kadajitanda banita pindamang. In his hand, he has a ball of fresh butter, and. Nitam agre tanayamaveksha, and his mother's seeing him and in front of her, and she's in ecstasy. So this is just one little verse. Now that little statue of Krishna is present in like probably 200 million homes in India. Isn't it? Don't you have that little Bal Gopal? You have one. Is it? It's the standard. So the relationship of mother or father to child, and friend to friend, servant master, there's also some of that. And of course the gopis, famously, that intimate love, that's also there. So these are our eternal relationships. We fit in there somewhere. Now, we may even be a cow or a bird, but they're fully conscious. They're just taking that role because it's necessary to engage in it. They also see Krishna, he delights them, he plays the flute for them and everything. So anyway, this is our original home, and that's our sarup. Nityadas means a servant of Krishna in any form. Now, tatastha shakti. This is a very essential concept. Tatastha means on the border. It's called like a margin. So we have a perfect example here. Everyone's been down to the beach. When the tide is coming in and going out, when the ocean is coming in, there's part of it where the water is covering and then it comes back off, right? So it's dry and then wet, dry and wet. So we're right there on the tata. Meaning that we can be either influenced and absorbed in the material energy or completely enthralled and absorbed in the spiritual energy. That's our choice. We have a minute free will. And long ago, we made the choice of turning our back on Krishna and trying to become separate enjoyers and controllers. And that's how we came to the spiritual world. That's also part of the teachings that he gives here in this teaching of Lord Chaitanya. So forgetting Krishna, Shri Shri Gauranatai ki jai, Shri Radha Hari ki jai, Jagannath Baladev Subhadraji ki jai. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Shri Radha Giridhari Ki Jai. So, understanding this, the difficulty is that it requires some faith, because our senses and mind are so covered, we can't see all of this directly. And it sounds like it could be just a story, somebody's mythology. And this is where our great trusted acharyas come in. Srila Prabhupada came, and he was able to infuse the faith first in the 26th Second Avenue and in New York, to a few receptive souls. And what was the faith? Okay, I'll try it. Try what? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. They'll try singing, first of all. We didn't even introduce japa at first. Chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Because as soon as you chant with a little attention, and whatever you bring to it in terms of devotion, but a little attention at least, the magic starts working. And then from within the heart, Krishna is giving you some spiritual pleasure, and he's opening up your mind to the philosophy so that you'll be interested. What was that I experienced? They even had, because he's preaching in the Lower East Side in the 60s. I used to live there at that time. I missed the early days. But in 68, I was there. And there was a drug culture, and there was a lot of political fervent with the Vietnam War, and a lot of exploration. Indian knowledge was coming in. The Beatles had a lot to do with it. But a lot of it was the LSD, which is like unmooring you from what you thought you knew about what reality was. And I'm not, I don't recommend it. And Prabhupada said, no, you don't need it. But the fact is that it created a certain receptivity, so the devotees were able to try. They tried to try things. Try LSD, try marijuana, try chanting Hare Krishna. And when you chant Hare Krishna, then transformation takes place. And mostly Srila Prabhupada, because of who he was, his purity and his devotion, and frankly his compassion and his love, people were able to listen to and accept him as an authority. And then he introduced, yes, I'm just a student of Bhakti Siddhanta. It goes all the way back, to Lord Chaitanya and Krishna. These are great towering intellects who gave up everything and took to this process and experiences the heights of ecstasy and understanding and realization. So that's who backs it up. In other words, we're not just flying blind here, somebody is speculating. We're actually within the care, really, of a whole family of highly realized souls, very pure in their lifetime and in their thoughts and everything. And so they have given us the essence of all the Vedic Shastras, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavad Purana, and Srimad Bhagavatam, like that. And Srila Prabhupada has given us, his wonderful contribution of books, many, many books. And so we have an opportunity to practice and to learn and to experience and finally realize. So I just wanted to go over really quickly, I have about 15 minutes, what the sadhya is. The sadhana, the sadhana. The sadhya is, simply put, Prabhupada's famous phrase, go back home, back to Godhead. It's such a rich phrase. First of all, the very word use of the word home means that we were once there. We've left on our own volition. Who knows how many millions of years ago. It doesn't matter. Our place is still there in that home. Home there with Krishna and with all of the gopis and the gopas and the cows and that whole idyllic atmosphere. That's where we are. And we go back. In other words, we came from there and we want to go back home. And what is the process? That's the sadhya. And what is the sadhana? The sadhana is all of the practice that Srila Prabhupada gave us, beginning with the chanting of the holy name. That has been formulated so beautifully by Rupa Goswami in his book, The Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which Srila Prabhupada gave us as the nectar of devotion. By the way, this book, I want to highly recommend. It's available. They have it in one of they don't have it in the store, I don't think, but on one of the tables. And the nectar of devotion is also completely available. Very systematic. The do's and the don'ts. The first principle, go aro gurvashriyam. You have to find a teacher, someone competent, who you can have full faith in and who you agree to guide you in your path. Because we're so conditioned to accepting this false self as the real self. And our goals are simply built around that false ideal. But once we understand we're real souls, then we can accept more and more into our life of this process, which is very systematically set up, beginning with hearing, chanting, remembering, and associating with devotees. By the way, I'll just give you, since I came here 32 years ago, I've been giving the evening Bhagavad Gita classes. This was always part of Prabhupada's program. Morning and evening, the ISKCON Sandrish. We have the morning program with Mangal Artik and the Japa and the Tulsi Puja and the Guru Puja and the greeting the deities and class. And in the evening, a simpler program, but still meant to be rich, Kirtan and class, Bhagavad Gita class. So I'm trying to keep that going. And so we've been through the Gita at least twice. I think we're on our third time now. And so you're all welcome. Starts at 7:15. Same price, 0. It's free. Admission is free. Or catch us online. We're being streamed. Even before COVID, it was going on. So the process is in one sense very simple. It's turning our attention away from matter and from our own sense gratification, and toward Krishna. Beginning with sound. Sound is the liberating force, especially this Hare Krishna mantra. It's not Lord Chaitanya did not compose it, did not make it up. It's in the Upanishads. The two verses that are often quoted, the first one goes like this: Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Iti Shodashakam Nam, Kali Kalmanta Nashanam, Natak Padataropaya, Sava Vedeshu Drishyate. These 16 names, Iti Shodashakam Nam, Kali Kalmasha Nashanam. Some of you may know Sanskrit or know the verse. Destroy, or the best way to destroy the impurities and the confusion of the age of Kali. This age is not very good if you want to do any other process besides Hare Krishna. Very difficult. So Kali, but these names can do it. Kali, you may serve Natak Purataropa, you may search throughout the Vedas, you won't find a more efficacious means than this chanting. And Lord Chaitanya based his preaching on it. Practically, he just gave out the holy name. So that's available, the hearing and the chanting. Now, there's a way to do it to make it the most quick advancement, and that is to avoid offenses, which are all listed there. They're in the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and they're in the Nectar of Devotion. And the root of all offenses, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur, one of our great acharyas, is inattention. So concentrating the mind, it is a yoga process. As soon as you concentrate the mind, then you feel the draw of Krishna's personality and his holy name. Very, very nice. So 2 ways, with the congregational chanting, the easiest, most natural way, and the japa meditation. And so that's the beginning of the process is hearing and chanting. And then there's 9 that have been given by Prahlad Maharaj, Shavanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, remembering. If you hear and you chant and with attention and you discuss, then you'll remember. Just like I've memorized all these verses, They're wonderful. They contain so much knowledge that has been given, in the Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. Srila Prabhupada wanted that. So those you can share, just like I shared that one with you. I have many recorded. The Bhagavatam is filled with them. Like Prabhupada would always quote one verse, many verses, but this one of his favorites. It says, how's it go? Labdva sudurlamamidam bahusambhavante manusham artadam anityam abhiya dhira tunam yatetana patedanam nitya yavat nikshe yasaya vishaya kalasarvatakshyat. So condensed, so much knowledge in that one verse. It says, my dear friend, you've attained this human form of life after many, many births through other species. Sudurlabamidam, very difficult to attain, very rare. Bahusam manusham, human life. You can hear the word man in there. Artadam, key word. It means it alone, among all the species, can give you the arta, the goal. This is part of our talk tonight. The goal of human life. Other species, they can't hear the Bhagavad Gita. There's nothing they can do. They just have to automatically. But like all, it's anityam. It's not permanent. This is a gift, but it's expiring. Or each of us is headed toward leaving this body. So one has to be dhira, Key word. It has to be calm and has to think about deep things like this. So be dear. And then, turnam, quickly, without wasting any more time. Yateta, strive. For what? As long as your body is not dying, you have some life in you. Anumitya yavat nikshayasaya. For the ultimate good, the ultimate goal of life. That's the sadhya. Vishayakala sarvataksat, because you've experienced sense gratification in all the other species of life you've been in. Where did it get you? Birth, death, old age, and disease. We're all facing that. It didn't help us. It just distracts us. So while you are inspired to do it, strive hard. Don't waste any time, because Maya is so strong she'll bewilder you again, and you put it off. Maybe tomorrow. We've been doing that for millions of births. So that's the message of Lord Chaitanya. There's an urgency to it. That was certainly the message of Srila Prabhupada when he came. When he saw that there was some traction and he was getting he didn't waste any time. He would get up at 12 at night and dictate his books, and he would keep traveling. The devotee said, "Why don't take a rest? Come to Gita Nagari, spend a few weeks." Or Prabhupada's health was declining. He said, "No, I want to be like Arjun. If I'm going to die on the battlefield, struggle to preach." An incredible example. So we have all come in touch with this movement in one way or another. So read Srila Prabhupada's books, chant Hare Krishna, catch us online or come in person. It's so nice that people are coming again. The Sunday feast, we have this crazy COVID. But the amazing thing is that over these year and a half, has it been or more now, the temple is filled up with devotees. We got new men. Like, you came right before, right? He was going to come anyway. This Alex he's obviously from previous birth, It took him about 2 days to learn the drum, another day to learn the harmonium, and now he's going to be initiated in a week. 1 week. Don't miss the initiation. And our wonderful Bhakti Glenn also, and Michael and Ed, Bhakti Ed. But what the point is that this COVID should make us sober, and understand. Well, life is don't waste it just trying to enjoy. Anything can happen. The weather is going crazy. The climate is changing, and COVID is coming back. Chant Hare Krishna. Realize the urgency of it. Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi Dukkha Darshana Darshanam. Krishna gives this instruction. You should always see the danger, the evils of birth, old age, disease, and death. So we had a few boys got serious. They may have been interested in how they got serious, and they joined up, dancing. I have to talk to
Hare Krishna?
Oh, and there's Vijay Krishna, all the way from Portugal.
From Portugal.
Yes, I was just saying.
And I have a question.
Go ahead, Vijay.
I want to, Dravida Prabhu, my humble obeisances, a wonderful class. Thank you very much.
He always says that. It's everybody. Go ahead.
I need to know, why is it that your spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, being a proponent of the universal chanting of the Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, why is it that whenever he was there conversing and exchanging with different religions and followers of different religions, why is it that he was saying to them, "Oh, you do not need to change from your religion in order to become a Hare Krishna. You can go on practicing your own religion, but do it the pure way." What was the intention of Srila Prabhupada while saying like this?
Well, preaching means understanding time and circumstance. And what Srila Prabhupada was doing there, he was telling them, look, you don't have to chant Hare Krishna, but you need to chant the holy name. He would always say that you have name in your own religion. Like if you read the Bible, I haven't read through the whole Bible, but I know in the Psalms of David, there's an injunction to play the cymbals and lift your voice up and glorify the name of God. Isn't that?
May I say the verse?
Please.
And ye shall come together congregationally with drums and cymbals and chant the holy names of God. It doesn't say the Lord, but it says God.
Yes, just see.
The version I have, there's a lot of Bibles.
Yeah, that's true.
It's exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
It is
So Srila Prabhupada was trying to get them to accept this, this principle of glorifying the name of God, and that if they would follow, he would always say, your guru says thou shalt not kill, so why are you so expert at killing the cows? And he would meet various priests and everything, and no one could answer that. They said, well, what's the point of this? So he was speaking not only for the benefit of the, whoever the representative of religion, but for the audience, because people are coming from different directions, and they may not feel comfortable. Oh, I have my own religion, but I'm interested. This seems to be ecumenical. Let me check it out. I mean, all of his followers. Let me say it this way: none of his followers were coming from a Hindu background when he first came. They're coming from Jewish background and this background. So he was telling them the essence and inviting them to try this and pointing out the places in their own scripture which support the idea of nonviolence and also the idea of chanting the name. It was a brilliant tactic. And at times he would challenge them, so they want to say, well, let's talk about higher matters. No. Why don't you admit that you're violating the injunctions of Jesus, thou shalt not kill? They try to say, oh, this is not murder. But, if you look at the Greek, actually it is, thou shalt not kill. So Prabhupada, he dealt with all these different persons. He would always like to quote Dr. Kotovsky from Moscow, because Dr. Kotovsky was representative of the Soviet Union at the time. Prabhupada visited Moscow once. Made one disciple who then introduced Krishna consciousness into Russia. And it's like a huge yatra now. It was amazing. And so this Professor Kotovsky, you call him Professor Kotovsky, he would say, Swamiji, after the body is dead, everything is finished. Right? So this Professor Kotovsky got so much benefit, from his name being used. I mean, he's long gone, but he's representative of this foolish philosophy that you one and done, that there's no such thing as a soul, there's no such thing as reincarnation, And so, but that was, Prabhupada dealt with him in that way, and he dealt with everybody in such a perfect way that they advanced in Krishna consciousness. And if not themselves personally, they became instrumental in others advancing. So in that way they did service, So that's why, he didn't say to chant Hare Krishna to someone who's a priest of a Catholic priest, but why don't you chant your own name that you know? And then he did say Christ and Krishna, the name is the same. The relationship between the name of Krishna and Christ. Now that was interesting, fascinating. That's the best I can do. Vijay?
Yes, Dravida Prabhu, wonderful answer to my question.
He always says that, no matter what I say. How about tomorrow night?
Tomorrow night I'll be there.
Okay. Portugal. Amazing. Okay, so it's time. I'm over time. But if there are just any quick comments or questions, and then Prasad? Yes, Manoj, go ahead.
I have a comment. I'm amazed that, well, first of all, I'm happy that you did the class because I watched the YouTube lectures.
Because we have an audience out there.
I was happy that you're doing the class. I watch your YouTube lectures. I appreciate what you say. And my comment was, I was wanting to ask for weeks about the animals in Goloka Vrindavan, who are they? And you answered it, so it's amazing.
Yeah, they're all great souls, and they're amazing. They're fully Krishna, they're fully conscious. Mm-hmm. Krishna loves to call them. He can call their names on the flute. Now figure out how he does that, And they're just Krishna's calling my name. They have their own. The cows and the calves. It's wonderful. Every animal. They're all eternal. Okay, thank you very much. All glories to the Prabhupada. Don't forget, if you want some prasadam, box prasadam, it'll be at the door there, to the lounge. Hare Krishna. All glories to the Prabhupada. Good. Okay. Hare Bol.